today's video, we're going to be talking about another Invicta. This is the Corduba model number 23553. So let's get right into it. So if you've been looking at this watch online, you're probably wondering what's up with the band. I did swap out the genuine calf leather band that comes with it with a NATO band just because I am not a fan of leather. I acknowledge that it looks fantastic, but just for the kind of life that I live, leather is really not the ideal choice. So I went with something a little bit more, I guess, rough and tough, if you want to call it, something that can handle more of a beating. I like to preserve the integrity of the leather just in case if I ever did want to resell the Corduba. However, bottom line up front, I don't believe I'm going to get rid of it. I believe that I will keep this watch forever. I went ahead and removed the band so we can do a quick 360. Here is the top and the main dial. And then on the side, as always, you have the Invicta engraving. Some people don't like that. I think it looks very cool. Here is the other side. You've got the logo on the crown. I don't know if the lighting's good enough. There we go. And then your start and stop button for your chronometer. And then your reset button down here. And here's the case back. You can see Corduba collection. It's just very well put together. Now just going over some basic dimensions. For a case diameter, we've got 46 millimeters, and it is a perfect square, so height and width is going to be 46. For case thickness, right around 13 millimeters, and then for band width, we are looking at a band width of 24 millimeters. So all in all, very reasonable numbers, and that's surprising because Invicta normally has very heavy, very large watches. And speaking of weight, let's go ahead and pull out the scale. With the scale, we are measuring at just over 5.5 ounces, or 160 grams. And of course that number is going to fluctuate a little bit if you use the leather strap, but ballpark, that's what you should expect as far as weight goes. Here is the wrist shot. Still quite a substantial watch as far as size goes, but because of the shape, I think it wears very comfortably. I've not had any issues with it, and I have worn it working out throughout the day and really had no issues. I very much like the perfect square case design, which is very reminiscent of your Bell & Ross watches. Now going over some functions and features. This is a chronometer. As you can see on the dial, there are 3 sub-dials, one by the 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. The sub-dial by the 10 o'clock is going to measure minutes, full minutes in stopwatch mode, up to 30 minutes. The sub-dial by the 2 o'clock position is your 1/10 of a second. So when you hit that stop button, and I'll show you this later, it will show you on the second which tenth of a second it measured. And then down here is just your regular second hand. So this main second hand is for the chronometer, and then this is for regular time. These 2 buttons right here is how you utilize the stopwatch. So if you go ahead and hit that top button, now you're measuring time. And then again to stop, and there you saw that sub dial. We'll go ahead and do that one more time. Now we're measuring time again, and hit stop, and it'll tell you which second and 10th of a second it stopped at, and then hit this again to reset. I wish that this one came with a sweeping motion, as we are all familiar with most analog chronometers, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. I think it's just a design feature that I prefer. Let's go ahead and reset that again. As far as water resistance goes, it is rated up to 200 meters. However, we do not have a screw down crown. It's just a standard push-pull crown. So definitely not classified as a dive watch. We also have Loom on the hour and minute hand, as well as all of the non-numbered indices. It's somewhat respectable, not perfect, not ideal, but it is bright when it does have a charge. However, that charge fades away quickly after about half an hour. And let's go ahead and show you what that Loom looks like. As far as internals go, we're looking at a standard battery operated quartz movement. Invicta advertises this as having a Swiss movement, but just keep in mind it's just your ETA G10.711, which is nothing special. It's a disposable, non-serviceable movement, but don't let that prevent you from considering this watch. I mean, it's a reliable movement. It's just nothing special. So I think that that's kind of the only downside that I can really list off on the Corduba, and we'll discuss that later on in the video. So that really concludes the technical specifications part of the video. Now we'll just go into my personal thoughts. Bottom line up front, I absolutely love this watch. I love the fit and finish. It feels absolutely fantastic. It is solid and built like a tank. And that is readily apparent just from looking at pictures. You can see this solid metal case. It's solid and it is dense, which I absolutely love. You can really feel that quality from the initial time that you get it on your wrist. So it is no secret for those of you that are familiar with Bell and Ross watches that the Corduba is essentially a copy, homage, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it is heavily influenced from their design. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I consider that a good thing because Bell and Rosses are not budget friendly at all. They probably average from $2,000 to $10,000 depending on which model you buy. This one goes for $200. Ballpark. You could probably find some for $170, find some for $220, but they average around $200. And I have owned a Bell & Ross before. I traded it just because I was interested in other things at the time. I kind of regret getting rid of it. However, having the knowledge of what a Bell & Ross feels like, this comes to a very comparative feeling as far as overall case design, bit and build quality. And I will admit that the internals are not comparable. You're obviously never going to compare the internals of an Invicta to the internals of a Bell & Ross, a Panerai, a Rolex, you name it. It's not comparable. However, for those of us who are just casual watch collectors, we're not too serious about having a watch that will last several generations. We're not worried about a watch that could be considered an heirloom. This is perfectly acceptable. I absolutely love the way that it looks and it tells time good enough for me, and there's really nothing to complain about that. I will say that I believe the Corduba model, at least in this design, is discontinued or is getting increasingly harder to procure. And I try to avoid doing videos on discontinued watches just because I don't want to advertise something that most people can't get anymore. But I'm making an exception in this case because this is still available on eBay and on Amazon for the time being. So if you've been looking at these and you just really weren't sure whether or not to pull the trigger, I would say if you're a casual watch collector or you're not too focused on precision, accuracy, and top of the line movements, then this is a perfectly acceptable watch to buy. So to summarize the video in a nutshell or just in one sentence, the Invicta Corduba looks good, feels good, and tells time accurately. What more could you want in a watch? And it is quite affordable. So that's all I got to say for now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it helps you with your next watch purchase. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.